And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be talking a little bit about FIBA basketball because for the first time since 2007, 2008, the Greek Olympic team has qualified for the Olympics. The Greek basketball team has qualified for the Olympics, and I mentioned on the previous podcast that Giannis Antetokounmpo was going to go up against Luka Dončić and Slovenia in the matchup, and the final score for that game was 96-68 in favor of Greece. That is a huge scoring margin, and obviously, that was just the Greek offense and the Greek defense was just too much for the Slovenian national team. And crazy enough, Giannis wasn't even the leading scorer of that team. Now, I know I have Giannis pointed up here, but Thomas Walkup was actually the leading scorer for the Greek national team. And obviously, Luka Dončić, he was the lead scorer for Slovenia, but he only ended with 21 points. And, Luka scoring 21 points it's not going to really, get the team or put the team in a good enough position to win. And aside from playing Slovenia, they also had to play, they also had to play Croatia in the finals, and that ultimately decided, their victory. And since they ended up winning that game, they eventually qualified for the team. Now, Ivica Zubac plays for Croatia. He was the leading scorer on there. He ended with 19 points, but Giannis showed up and ended with 23 points to, cement Greece as an Olympic team. And he also led the team in rebounds as well with 8. Now, I understand, these aren't really, the crazy stats that we're used to seeing from Giannis Antetokounmpo. However, you also have to remember that these basketball tournaments and in FIBA, it's more so a team game than anything else. Pardon me. A lot of players on FIBA aren't really going to score a staggering amount of points as you're expecting them to, considering their NBA career. For example, Michael Jordan, when he was on the Dream Team, he only averaged 15 points in the Olympics, and Scottie Pippen only averaged around 10, and Carmelo Anthony, when he was on the Olympics, only averaged 10 in 2008. And LeBron and Kobe Bryant, they only averaged 15 in 2008, as well as Dwayne Wade, who also averaged 15. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean that they played bad. This just means that they played within the system because, again, it's very team-oriented. When you have a team that's surrounded with so much talent, like Team USA, you have to share the ball and you have to sort of, put your ego aside and fill the role that, your team needs. In 2008, Chris Bosh, while he is a phenomenal scorer, he mainly prioritized his game on the defensive side of the ball. And, that just better improved Team USA's chances of winning because he is more focused on the defensive side than he is in the scoring aspect of the game. And when you have a player that can do so much like Chris Bosh, can do a lot of scoring, and he's just prioritizing himself on the defense, that is incredibly valuable for any kind of Olympic team in basketball. That is just a luxury that a lot of teams in, the rest of the teams can't really afford, playing with so much talent. The same thing with Luka Dončić. He was the leading scorer of the team with 21 points, but, the rest of the team isn't really, up to par with his standards. Now, in other news with FIBA basketball, France ended up playing Germany, and Victor Wembanyama went off in that game. He ended up scoring 27 points on 11 for 17 from the field, ended up getting 5 rebounds as well as 3 assists in only 19 minutes. 19 minutes, and he scored 27 points. And, the French national team, while they've already qualified, they are a squad. If there was any sort of squad that the Team USA should be worried about aside from Canada, it should be France, because let's face it, Victor Wembanyama is going to be a threat to literally anyone that plays against him, especially in FIBA where the rules are slightly different. Now, one thing that I also didn't realize about FIBA is that the three-point line is a little bit shorter. Like, it's not the same as the NBA It's not the same as the NBA three-point line where I believe the difference is just 1 inch. I believe the three-point line is 23.9, or actually maybe 1 foot, I believe the three-point line in the NBA is like 23.9 feet away from the basket. I'm going to go ahead and check just to make sure. And the FIBA basketball, like the three-point line in FIBA, is like 22.8 feet away from the basket. Around those lines. But like, it's a slight difference, but that slight difference means almost everything with FIBA and a lot of these players. So that just gives them a greater advantage, especially Steph Curry. It gives Steph Curry a huge advantage in the three-point shooting department, because obviously that is where his value is. In some other news, Puerto Rico also qualified for the Olympics, the basketball team. And yes, that is Jose Alvarado that you see on the screen. And people were wondering if he could shoot. Yes, he can shoot. In one of the games where he played against Italy in the group phase, he ended up scoring 29 points on 7 for 10 from the three-point line. And versus Lithuania in the finals, he ended up scoring 23 points, 4 for 6 from the three-point line. And one of the things that's really a little bit underrated, or gets pushed under the rug, is just how good these international players are when they play with their team. It's a completely different system, and therefore they are forced to go into a completely different role. We know that Jose Alvarado, when he is on the Pelicans, he is mainly, he is a three-point shooter still, obviously, but he's mainly like a defender. I mean, Grand Theft Alvarado is his nickname, and you don't really see him having a ridiculous scoring performance as you do in FIBA. That completely, role players in the NBA turn into a different animal when they play FIBA. It happened with Patty Mills when he was playing on Australia. It happened with Manu Ginobili when he was playing in Argentina. Pau Gasol, Marc Gasol, even though they were also first options in the NBA. But they play so much better when they're on their international team because they have a lot more chemistry on that team as opposed to the chemistry that they have in the NBA. Because remember, a lot of these people, especially we'll use Luka Dončić as an example. He was playing basketball since he was, 16 years old. And probably even younger now that I think about it. But he's been playing with that squad since he was 16. So the chemistry with them is astonishing. You don't really skip a beat when you play with the players that you've played with for so many years. Same thing with Giannis Antetokounmpo. And that's one of the things that a lot of fans don't recognize, is just how good these role players actually are in a system that benefits them and with a team that they've been playing with for so long. Now, in some other FIBA basketball news, some of the teams that ended up qualifying is, other than Greece and Puerto Rico, Latvia ended up qualifying for the Olympics despite losing to Brazil, who also qualified for the Olympics. Actually, Brazil ended up qualifying for the Olympics, as well as Spain. They also ended up qualifying for the Olympics, I believe. I'm just going to make sure. Yeah, Spain, they ended up beating the team Bahamas, who actually had a they had a pretty good squad. They had DeAndre Ayton as the center. They had Buddy Hield as well. And they also had Eric Gordon playing for them on the Bahamas. So I'm very surprised that this team wasn't able to make it to the Olympics, which, is unfortunate for them. But, aside from that, that is really those are the teams that ended up qualifying, and those are the teams that are going to end up playing in the Olympics, I believe, just based off of the results of the game. And in some other news, when in the matchup between France and Germany, Evan Fournier and Dennis Schroeder ended up getting into a fight. Now, you guys, the image is rather blurry because I had to screenshot it from a video, but Evan Fournier and Dennis Schroeder, they ended up starting, to choke each other out in the middle of the game. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to put into effect in the Olympics. Like, I don't know if there's going to be a punishment handed out for Evan Fournier, like if he's going to be suspended for a couple of games, because in soccer, I know in soccer, if you get 2 yellow cards in the span of 2 games, you aren't allowed to play in the next game. And so, it might be a similar punishment coming in for the Olympics with Evan Fournier, but we'll go ahead and see how that unfolds. I just wanted to bring that up because that was a very huge story in the matchup between France and Germany. So with that out of the way, we are out of time for the 3rd segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the 4th segment, where I talk about some basketball news, some more free agent signings, as well as some NBA trades, and Bronny James's Summer League debut. So I will be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.